I would say that we'll take this as things that we do find morally valuable by most agents who, give their judgment on it. Um, and most of those things are, humans. They're Homo sapien. Uh, Now, I don't think this is very conclusive evidence, but I will say it does significantly raise the probability of the fetus having more consideration.
It really doesn't. So we're talking about zygotes in particular as well. Like, obviously, there's going to be some fetuses that I do think are morally valuable. But saying something like, well, there's dispute on its moral value, that's not going to get you anywhere because there's plenty of dispute on plenty of things moral value. There are people who dispute whether or not trees have moral value. That's not
Um,
very strong evidence at all.
Wait, I'm not sure if you know my evidence. The evidence that I gave wasn't that there's dispute on it. The evidence that I gave was just that take the set of things that we do find morally valuable, and it is the case that the vast majority of those things from the agents that report their perception of what is morally valuable, and it is the case that they're Homo sapien. And so once we
That's
identify that trait,
wrong. That's
um,
very wrong. No, the vast majority of things people think have at least some moral value are not Homo sapien. They're
um,
mostly non-Homo sapien animals.
I disagree with that. I think most people.
Yo, I'm gonna be right back. My Discord is not working for some reason.
You agree that there are more non-human animals than human animals, right? Even if you just specifically restrict it to like vertebrae.
Yeah.
Okay, and you agree that most people think vertebrae have at least some moral value, right?
Some moral value. Yeah, I guess like some moral value.
Okay, so most of the things people think have moral value aren't humans.
Yeah, I guess I was more so talking about rights. Like, it's that we would consider protecting legislatively.
Most people think that animals should have at least some right. That's
Like,
according to Gallup.
yeah, yeah.
So
I
even
get
talking about rights is still wrong.
okay. I guess I was thinking about it more from like what we typically think about when we think of a being with rights. And I still, even regardless of that, I still think that the beings that have the most moral
We typically
consideration
think of
are.
animals as having right.
No, I think a lot of us kind of just
No,
assume
the
that.
majority of people don't think that according to Gallup. So I've got polling data that shows that I'm right. You have polling data that shows that you're right.
Sure, I'm really confused on the propositions being contended here.
Whether or not it's the case that most people think that animals have rights.
Oh, I mean, I actually no, I agree that most people probably think that they have some rights to an extent, but not really to the point where it would like stop a woman from getting abortion for, or that we'd stop from like literally slaughtering for our taste pleasures. I feel like though
Yeah, most people
I
are
agree we
okay with at
didn't.
least some abortions. So that's not going to be a difference.
No, I agree that most people think that some abortions are okay, but what I'm more so talking about as far as evidence is that you offered some evidence saying that okay, well, most objects do not have rights, and so on the basis we should assume that the fetus does not have rights. And my response to that is like, well, I think the fetus, being Homo sapien, I think that is going to raise the probability of it having rights.
What
Seeing
you
as
said that most of the things that we consider as having moral value are Homo sapiens, then you adjusted that statement afterwards to be most of the things that we think have rights are Homo sapiens, both of
yeah,
which are
yeah,
false. Do we agree both of those are false?
yeah, I can see the first one. I'm not entirely
And the
sure what the
second one.
second one.
Well,
Can you?
so straightforwardly, the second one's false. We have polling data that shows that most people think that animals have rights. Obviously, animals greatly outnumber humans, which means that most things that people think have rights aren't humans.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
So then both are false, right?
Yeah, I'll concede both of those. But the inference that I was still trying to get at is
Hi, Bunk is there. I'm sorry to interrupt,
yeah,
Bunk.
what's up, Bunk? But the inference that I'm making, which I don't think it's conclusive. I do think that fetuses have more consideration, and the thing that I used to raise the probability, while it's not very significant, is that
I also think some fetuses have moral consideration. I don't think it's the case zygotes do. Do you have an argument for why zygotes do?
I guess I can give criteria that I find to be sufficient, and I think that a lot of the times when we're considering okay, what should have moral consideration, kind of like the example that you gave with vertebrae, I think the things that constitute moral consideration are going to be its similarities to the agents reflecting on moral consideration, and so now all I have to do is sort of point to a lot of similarities that the fetus has with agents that are giving it more consideration. And now that is kind of a lot of there's a lot of burden of proof on the assumptions that I just made, and I'm interested to see if you maybe disagree with the method.
I do disagree. I don't know why I believe the things that you're positing his assumptions. I'm also kind of curious though, regarding zygotic right. When you talk about rights and morality, are these just indexed to your preferences, or are they indexed to something else?
I think they're going to reduce down to my preferences.
Okay, so if
I don't want to interrupt the debate. Wait, real quickly, is Discord working for any of you guys right now?
No, for me, I cannot load the chat. I'm just like literally trying to get that.
So wait, I'm on Sinthe. Are any of the chats working for you? Or Lucario or Bunk, or any of the chats working for any of you guys?
Chat's working for me.
It's not working.
It's in multiple servers too. It's not just the. It's not just the
this Discord is down. Is this Discord just down?
Okay, I'll ask
multiple servers for me. So it's
I'll ask.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Continue as you guys are going, but that's the issue right now. Okay, I don't know what it is. All right, continue.
No worries.
Fucking cool. That means absolutely nobody can comment on this debate as it's happening. All right, 0 people. Is this 2v2 debate?
All the chat.
Yeah, it is.
You can't.
Shut up.
You can't
shut
comment.
Up. Nope, you can't comment. Shut up. No.
Okay, relax, buddy.
You weren't on the stage when I said it. You can't comment. Shut the fuck. There we go. So, no, is this supposed to be a 2v2 debate?
Yeah, that's
am I supposed to be here for the 2v2? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I forgot that I was even doing this apparently. But I'm here now.
Man.
Hello.
We drew it out for a while.
Fantastic. Yeah. Absolutely epic.
You've missed nothing. We're basically just trying to get an answer from Free to Go and Lucario as to why it's the case that we should care about the zygotes. I was asking Lucario if since their view on what makes like a moral statement true is just whether or not it comports with the speaker's preferences. Abortion does comport with my preferences very clearly, and so that would be my moral statement's true, right?
Yo, Sinthe, can I say something real quick, or do you wanna? I
would like an answer from Lucario.
Well, there seems to be a bit of a false assumption that I should have clarified. Is that I think that the kind of moral statements that are made true for an individual, I think they're made true given a set of values, right? So I don't want to just immediately go into meta-ethics, but I do find it to be the case that I don't think I can really tell someone what they should value. So the question like why should I value fetus? I don't think I can really answer what they should value at all, not just for the fetus. I don't think I can tell you what you should value at all until I have like a set of values that you already have, and then I can generate.
Big thank you to Chandler for the donation. I'm sorry it didn't read out on the stream. I have no idea why. Thank you.
Oh, no, you're good. But
oh fuck, I'm unmuted. Sorry.
With the set of values that you do tell me about, or the set of values that I know you have, I am able to sort of generate a range of values from that. And I've been able to do this with a lot of people. But I think worst case scenario, which isn't the end of the conversation, but worst case scenario is that the domain of values that we already have are going to be contrasting axiomatically to the point where I wouldn't be able to generate a range of values that we share.
Okay. Oh, what values do you think we share that entail that I shouldn't abort zygote?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, the whole fun of me saying that is I don't exactly know what values that you already have. So I need like a domain in order to generate a range of values. And I can try.
You said you thought you could do it with my values. I'm just curious, like what other values you think I have.
No, I don't know if I can do it with yours. That's why worst case scenario, we just contrast on the domain of values that we have, and then the range of values that we'd output are going to be contrasting as well. But I don't think that's it.
My values are utilitarianism. I'll just give you my set of values. My values are just utilitarianism. They're just hedonic utilitarianism. I just care about positive and negative experiences, and I care about maximizing those. Maximizing the sum of positive minus negative experiences.
Yeah.
So
I don't.
Do you think on utilitarianism it's the case that abortion is unethical?
I think on utilitarianism, I think I might be able to make an argument for that. But I think I need to investigate your position a little bit. Because in our previous conversations, both times you used this particular hypothetical where you analogized pregnancy to like an old man breaking into my wife's house or my wife's property and then stretching her pussy out, where the only way for me to stop her vaginal stretching is to kill the old man. I still have a couple questions because every time.
Just remind me. Did you in that hypothetical? Did you say you shouldn't shoot the old man to stop your pussy from getting stretched?
I did say that, yeah, and both times. And I'm curious because there's a couple questions. One of them is that does this really maximize utility? I'm still not entirely sure on that question. And then the second one, even if it did, I'm not sure if you would care about that. And I'm hoping to, lead your intuition somewhere else. So the way I would go about this, and you interrupt me if I'm going on too long, but the way to go about
I don't really care. It's like when I talk about ethics, it's not about what I care about.
Oh, well, I mean, I feel like you would care about it.
No, I care about ethics. What I'm telling you is when I talk about ethics or I make moral claims, those aren't indexed to just my considerations or concerns. Even if I no longer existed and didn't care about anything because I was dead, I would still it would still be the case that raping babies is wrong.
Okay, that might be a little bit semantic. We might have different semantics on, we probably have different semantics on moral, but I'm interested just for pragmatics, because at this point, I'm trying to lead the intuition, not just for you, but just for the audience as well. What I take to be kind of absurdities with, your attempts at levying this hypothetical, and then the responses offered to my answers. So, you think that it's completely fine for you to shoot the old man, right?
Yeah.
And the reason for that being is that it maximizes utility?
Yeah, he's net negative on utility.
Okay. Well, let's say that, and I hope this example isn't too, abstract, but let's say that he actually didn't break into your house, but he is, on the street. And him existing just for some unexplained reason means that your wife is about to give birth to a bowling ball. Because in our, last time we stipulated, it was just, it didn't really have to do with the sexual assault, just the literal vaginal stretching was so severe that you deem it to be less utility. Do you think that it would still be justified to shoot the old man on the street who's just literally sitting on the street? If
I don't think that guy would be net negative on utility.
You don't think what?
I don't think that guy would be net negative on utility.
Damn. If he shot him?
I don't think he would be net negative on utility, so I don't think it'd be good to shoot him.
And okay, so can I ask, so you don't think it would be good to shoot him, but you do think it would be good to shoot him if it was the case that he was the one stretching your wife's pussy out?
Yeah, if it was the case that he was the type of person who had some mental illness which caused him to do that, yeah, I think that person's probably net negative on utility. But a person who doesn't have a mental illness and instead is just the case that through magic, they're the type of person who has a magical connection to a bowling ball or something that stretches people's pussies out. No, I don't think that person's net negative on utility.
Well, wouldn't your response not be to shoot him, but to instead, take it, let him stretch your wife's pussy out, but then contain him to the point where he can't?
I don't think I'm letting him do it. I think I'm letting the bowling ball do it.
No, I'm asking for the first one because you're saying that
I would no. In the hypothetical, the options are I shoot him or I let it happen.
Yeah, and I was under the assumption that the utility that you're operating off of was just the vaginal stretching. I didn't know you were considering his life after the situation.
I am.
But still, don't you think that if he was the one stretching your wife's pussy out, you don't think that you should let it happen and then preserve his life afterwards and contain him to the point where he's not able to do that again?
No, he needs to be removed from society.
And why doesn't the person with the bowling ball need to do that?
Because the individual with the bowling ball is not the kind of person who has the mental illness that brings them to the conclusion that they should go around raping people.
Well, not that he should go around raping people. You didn't add this into
doesn't matter if it's his mental state say he should or shouldn't. The point of being is just that person has a mental state which causes him to rape people. The guy with the bowling ball has a magic spell on him. It's not his dispositional set.
Well, I was under the assumption that the deranged old man didn't have a mental state like at all. I thought he was just deranged.
Assuming he has no mental state, there's no downside of killing him.
Okay, well, why can't you just assume that with the bowling ball?
Okay, assuming it with the bowling ball, I'd be fine with killing him.
Okay, if he had a mental state was so deranged that he was just walking around calling people to, he was just causing people to be pregnant with the bowling ball. You'd be
because of some derangement, because of some kind of derangement that causes him to cast magic spells or something. Yeah, I'd be fine with killing that guy.
Okay.
These are all pretty intuitive answers, I feel.
No, that's fine. I just feel like there's a lot of, I think there's a large lack of specification on the hypothetical initially when it was asked of me. I don't know, I feel like if you'd specify that, okay, well, he's deranged and he's he has this mental state that makes him do it, and it's probably gonna make him do it continuously.
That was in the hypothetical. It was due to his mental illness that causes him to break into houses and stretch pussies out. He doesn't really know what's going on. That was in the original hypothetical I posited.
Okay.
So that wasn't underspecified.
I don't know. I'm probably gonna have to think about that a little bit. But yeah, I still think that you know, even if that it maximized utility, I think there's a lot of cases where we're not really gonna care about it regardless.
So we posted old content, pretend like nothing changed. Nothing has changed.
So I find your response to the trolley problem kind of insane. And then I think this is going to be a last intuition problem.
In the trolley problem, I pull the lever. Is that insane?
No, you push a fat dude off the cliff.
That's okay. You're talking about the fat man on the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pushed the fat man off the bridge. That's not insane. That's like not even like not even an. If it was insane, I would assume it to be the kind of position that only like 1 or 2% of philosophers take. But it seems like it was a much larger number.
No, I mean I find it to be just really counterintuitive. And I think this is just
okay. I find it to be really counterintuitive to let 5 people because you don't want to push the fat guy.
Okay, and then that's true for like harvesting this random dude who was on the street to save 5 patients, right?
So in the case of the version of the trolley problem where I fucking in terms of the surgeon case, the organ donor case, I think that it's the case that the downsides of stealing people's organs is that those individuals become scared of going to the doctors more frequently, and so because of that, we end up with a less healthy society overall. But if you isolate things and do it all in a vacuum, then I'm fine with it. But I'm gonna ask you in the case of the trolley, right? You have to pull the lever to kill 1 person to save 5. Do you do it?
Pull 1 lever to kill 1. I wouldn't do it. No.
Okay, so that's unintuitive to most people according to polling data.
Yeah. I think if it was like, I want to say maybe 10 or 30 people, I'd probably do that. But 5, I think that's like kind of just on the border for me. But I'm like very.
So would you push a fat man off a bridge to save 30 people?
Push a fat man off a bridge to save 30 people? Probably not. No, my intuitions are a little.
So what's the morally relevant difference in pulling the lever and pushing the fat man?
I struggle to see a morally relevant distinction, but the thing that makes it my answer, I can tell you the thing that dictates my answer is going to be sort of putting myself in like those situations. Like, I think I'd be very terrified. Like, if I was already tied to a train track, I'd be pretty terrified that someone like, I'm going to be like run over. But if I was just like hanging out on a bridge, I think it's like pretty unfair, and it's like an unreasonable situation. For me to be like pushed off of the bridge where I felt like I was in a state of security amongst other people.
Why isn't that the exact kind of thing? I mean, so being in a state of security, like let's imagine the fat guy now knows that it's the case, that there's this train coming and that he being pushed over the bridge is the only thing that will stop the train. Now are you okay with pushing him over the bridge?
Oh, sorry, can you repeat that?
Assume the fat man isn't in a state of safety. He realizes that he's in a dangerous situation. Now is it okay to push him?
I think my intuitions would actually make it easier to push him off. Yeah, and that's exactly.
But would you think you ought to do it?
That I ought to do it. Yeah, I mean it would get closer to that depending on the numbers, but yeah, it would significantly increase my intuitions towards pushing him off the bridge. And
why
this
would
is
somebody
exactly
being in a dangerous situation make you care less about them?
And not that I care less, but that I would feel like worse about putting them off. It's the exact.
That would mean that you care less.
Well, no, I mean. I'm not sure about that. That might be some.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously like just straightforwardly. If you feel less bad about doing it, and you care less.
But I mean, I feel like it's the same sort of mental process that I go through when I'm thinking about the harvest issue of pulling someone like randomly off the street. Like the more distorted away from like dangerous situations they are, the more I kind of empathize with them, and I feel bad like taking them out of that situation.
Oh, well, I empathize more with people who are in dangerous situations than people who are outside of them. So I feel like that's probably what most people feel as well. Is a stronger sense of empathy to somebody who is in dangerous situations. But all that aside, I don't feel like any of my answers there run intuitive. So I'm kind of curious for you. You think it's the case that moral claims being true depends on whether or not it's the case you prefer those states of affairs? Is that correct?
Not always just preference, but preference is oftentimes like the thing that.
Then, if it's not just preferences, what is it?
Like,
what is it that makes a moral statement true?
Well, moral statements, it's preference along with sort of evaluation of conducitivities. Like I don't know who's whispering in the background, but
and by that you mean your evaluation, right?
Not just mine specifically, but I feel like moral statements can be true for me and not true for another person.
Those would just make them different statements.
Yeah, they're making different statements to the point where
Okay.
Other people's preferences are going to be in consideration, and then my empathy with those other people's preferences are going to influence my actions.
So when you say it's wrong to punch babies, you mean what? It's
Um,
what
when
to
I-
punch babies.
When I say it's wrong to punch babies, there's quite a few ways I could explain, and I feel like there's different ways I could even use the phrase "it's wrong to punch babies." One of them being I don't like when you punch babies, or it makes me sad, or it gives you negative mental states when you punch babies. That could be one, and another one could be like it's against your values to punch babies. Like if it's the case that you want to live a fruitful life in society where people don't think you're weird, you shouldn't punch babies. And it is the case that you don't want people to think you're weird, so it would be bad for your values to punch babies. I'm sure there's a couple others I could think of.
So even if it was the case that no human beings existed, would it be the case that it's wrong to spawn people into the world getting raped?
Yeah, I'd say that.
Okay. Who is that index to? Say wrong there.
The people getting raped.
The people getting raped?
Yeah.
So all you mean when you say it's wrong there is just that people wouldn't like it if it happened to them?
That's not all I mean, but I think that's definitely sufficient for the kind of wrongness I'm talking about.
So couldn't we construct the same example, but with something where the individual does deserve what's happening to them and it's actually better off the world's like that?
I'm sure I could think of an example like that, yeah.
And you wouldn't say those things are wrong?
I actually would say it's wrong to a very small percentage of people, that being the person involved.
So if it was the case that... So, I mean, do you think it's the case that it's wrong to punish people for crimes?
No, like generally speaking.
But they wouldn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be wrong. Yeah.
So then, why isn't it wrong?
I don't think it has to be just wrong or right. I think it can be wrong for most people.
Is it right to punish people for crimes?
Oh yeah, sorry. It can be right for most people, and I would say it's right for most people.
Okay, I didn't ask you is it right for most people. I just asked you is it wrong?
Yeah, it's wrong for the person getting assaulted or
it's
getting
wrong. It's wrong for the person being punished.
Yeah, for the person being punished.
Okay, so it seems like what you're saying when you say wrong is wildly context dependent and it's kind of unclear in each moment. So are there any other pieces of language you can use in place of wrong when you say abortion's wrong? Because it's not wrong for the people doing it, right?
No, not wrong for them. And I think actually I would say it's wrong for them given the set of values that they have.
Which values?
I can make that argument. I could talk about the values that they have, specifically for the people getting abortions that are non-vegan. If it's a case that they don't think that animals have inherent rights, and they do think that humans have rights.
Most non-vegans think that animals do have rights.
I agree, but not to the extent where they wrong.
Okay. So the vast majority of individuals getting abortions do think animals have rights. So I don't know why we presented that.
I thought you were just talking about just a random person.
Yeah, a random person would be on average like the average person.
Okay. So let's think about a woman who's getting an abortion, and they think that animals have rights, right? I think that
most people, yeah.
Okay. Oh well, actually, I am able to explain this. I think. I think that let's take a woman who thinks that animals have rights, and I think it's the case that if they believe that their dog has rights or you shouldn't molest cats. I still think that there's a strong case to be made that you should not get the abortion because of the criteria that they lay out for giving cats and dogs rights. I think that's going to be.
Feelings is the criteria. Does zygotes have feelings?
I don't know if that's the criteria. I would argue that the criteria is something anthropomorphic about the dogs.
So if it's just you're saying it looks like the kind of thing they would value, then that's not going to be true of a zygote either.
Well, not just looks, but has properties of they're very similar about.
Such as what properties?
Properties for a dog, it would be properties like being able to express emotions, being able to smile. Can't do that. I know, I agree. I'm just giving examples for the dog. Do you want anthropomorphic traits for the dog?
I'm asking what are the similar properties between both? Because you're saying the similarity in properties is what gives the moral value. I'm just asking what are the similar properties between the dog and between the zygote?
Well, the similar property is that they're anthropomorphic. Now, I can give you properties that are...
What does it mean to be anthropomorphic other than to look like a human?
It means to have similar properties to a human.
So what properties, retard?
No, I'm not saying that they have similar properties between each other. I think you're a little confused.
What properties are similar to a human about it?
Okay. Now, this is the question I'm able to answer, not like what are similar between the dog and the zygote. So I think your question
What are the properties?
Okay, the properties that are true of the dog, which is literally what I was just asking, or was it that I was just answering? Was
no,
that
what properties are true of the zygote?
Okay, no. Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. You need to be a little bit more.
This
clear.
isn't a matter of like, look, this isn't a matter of like not being clear. What properties of the zygote?
No, I think you're not being clear with the questions because at first you were asking.
Oh my god.
No, at first you were asking
similar. The answer that now look, I don't care if you think the question was unclear earlier. You know what the question is right now. Answer it. What are the properties the zygote has which are morally valuable?
Okay, the hostility is not rhetorical, but the properties that are true of the zygote is that it has a teleological predicative rationality. That's what I would argue. Like it's developing.
That's the property. That's the property you think that the woman values. About that, what you would value about a zygote.
Yeah, I think so.
And you think it's the property that gives dogs rights?
No, that's not the property that gives dogs rights. Because again, wait.
Do you remember what your argument was?
No, I don't think you remember the question. Because that's
I directly remember the question. I'm asking you, what are the properties of the zygote that you think that she in particular is going to morally value and are going to be rights given because you said those exist. You said that the same property shields for the dogs are properties the zygote would have, and that property is being anthropomorphic. And then I'm asking you, what is the property that makes it anthropomorphic is true of the zygote? Because none of the ones that are true of the dog are going to be ones that are true of the zygote. And what you've given me instead is a thing which nobody holds to be morally valuable. Nobody cares about that. The average person does not give a fuck about that at all. Is there anything the average person gives a fuck about that's true of the zygote?
No, you just asked me if that trait, that teleological predicate rationality, you just asked me if that was the thing that makes dogs valuable, and I said no.
Is there anything about a zygote that the average person would care about?
Okay, but I'm really confused because you keep asking these non sequitur questions, and then it seems like you're getting confused.
I've been asking
it actually sounds like you're getting confused.
Do you have an example property that most people are going to give a fuck about that's true of the zygote that gives it moral value?
I believe that a teleological predicate of rationality is the trait that most people value.
Why?
When I contrast, okay, so it's a thought process that I contrast on what we value in hypotheticals, and I've already explained this in our last conversation. But typically, when you name the trait on a non-vegan, oftentimes they're not going to be able to name the trait, but when they do offer responses in the dialogue process, the response is like, okay, well, there's like a box in which the trait is true. And then I think a perfect reconciliation for that was the name the trait, the trait evaluative process, where you change traits to be more similar to humans. And then once you get that sort of process going, that's where we kind of nail in on people's intuitions. And then something that we find unintuitive about all the hypotheticals that non-vegans are going to bite the bullet on are exactly things that capture human traits. And then if you want, I mean that's like an argument for why we
I feel like the cases that are unintuitive are ones you've easily captured with my metric, which is just that it doesn't have any kind of sentience.
No, I completely disagree with that. I think the things that we find unintuitive are when we humanize them. Like if we offered Superman as an example with like a bunch of kryptonite, and we asked, is it okay to like eat Superman now? Well, the answer is no amongst most people.
I feel like without humanizing it, most people are going to say something like it's wrong to rape dogs. You don't have to do any humanization at all.
No, I think the reason why they think it's wrong to rape dogs is because the nature of rape has been so severe that it extends to, like, the extent goes to other beings that aren't quite as.
They also think it's wrong to kill dogs. They also think it's wrong to eat dogs.
Yeah, and I think I give a pretty reasonable explanation for why that is the case. It's because dogs,
you gave an explanation that predicts the exact same thing as my explanation, and then you said your explanation is better. Mine also predicts that people think it's Mine also predict that people will think it's wrong to rape dogs. It'll also predict that people think that it's wrong to eat dogs. It's wrong to skin dogs alive. It's wrong to torture dogs. I'm asking you, what is the reason? What is the reason why you think it's the case anybody values any of this jibber jabber about teleology? Why do you think the average person cares about that?
Oh, you're not exactly tracking the explanations that I'm giving. So the reason why my explanation explains the data better than. No, I'm not tracking it. And there might be cases where I'm not tracking it, but only because you keep asking non sequitur questions. Like, just stop with the non.
How they were direct and not even remotely non sequitur.
You drop.
Instead of like rambling, I just want you to.
You drop the questions.
I would just like you to tell me
I
why I should
realize...
believe the average person cares about these teleological considerations.
No. You realize that the questions were non sequitur, and you continue to try to interrupt, hoping that maybe you could mask the the non sequiturs of the questions. So let's stay on point, and let's just...
Nobody else thinks that.
No. I mean, I don't know about other people, but that is what happens. So, and I can explain to you why, but you're not gonna... No, I can explain.
I don't want you to explain some meta shit to me.
I know you don't. I know you don't want the explanation. That's predicted under the view.
I just want you to directly
That's predicted under the view that you realized it was a non sequitur.
It's also predicted under the view that I just don't care about it.
No, I mean, the view that you don't care about it, I agree that you probably don't want to care about it because, it looks bad for your dialectical performance. And
I'm looking really bad right now. Can you just go ahead and answer? Why would I believe the average person cares about all this teleology out?
No, you made a claim, and then I'm about to disprove the claim. Okay, just give me a second to disprove the claim, please.
Oh, God. You were supposed to answer that question way earlier, and then you said some ramble that didn't do that at all. So go ahead and go ahead.
It's because you keep interrupting. It's because you keep interrupting. I'm hoping that maybe if I illustrate the instructions and non sequitur questions, I'm hoping if I illustrate that, maybe it's going to reduce the behavior. Like, I'm just hoping at this point.
Hurry up.
But yeah. Anyways, but
That's not what's in dispute. It's just that if it explains the data you provided equally well.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I don't know why I said better. I apologize. But why? Like, okay. I think mine explains it much better. Since my prediction for the trait that we value, it's going to predict that we value things like dogs, things like cats, and things like monkeys. But it's not going to predict that we value things like cows, like yours does. And
hold on. Why would it predict that we value dogs but not cows?
Because dogs have a higher amount of anthropomorphic traits that they display.
Such as?
Smiling when they show emotions, similar to us.
Dogs will smile at a lot of other things and emotions. That tightness in their face is not the exact same thing as a smile, but cows do that too.
It's not when we look at a cow smiling, it's not as like reminiscent of like a human smiling. And another thing
is about equally reminiscent to me. People also wouldn't say that if a dog couldn't smile, it has less moral value. So that's actually an argument against your case.
No, I think just like really, really trivially, I think it would. Like if dogs didn't express and be able to sort of comfort humans the way that a lot of them do. But the next one is going to be
if you learn that actually when dogs are smiling is because they're hot outside and it's not because of the fact they feel happy, do you think that would like make you lose some moral value?
Yeah, like I think
that is true.
No, part of my value. But part of my valuing them is that whenever we cuddle with them, they do smile, and it reminds me of like humans.
Because they're
I will probably get some data on it, sure. But the next one, the next piece is the dogs.
So, have you ever tried cuddling a cow?
Ew, no.
Yeah, dogs smell like shit too. So I'm not gonna. You think it doesn't make much sense.
No, I guess I'm more acquainted with the scent of dogs. But another thing, I think. Oh, that was not rhetorical, but
that shit was highly rhetorical.
But okay, the next one is that something that cows definitely cannot do is that an explanation for this also being the case that dogs are not like as natural animals as cows are. They derive from wolves, which I think that the fact that dogs came from wolves and the method that they did come from wolves is just the fact that they were around humans to the point where I'd argue that those mutations and biological alterations made them a little bit more anthropomorphic, and to the point where they were able to express traits like humans was because they had adopted a lot of our traits. And a huge evidence for this is the fact that we've actually been able to get certain dogs to not only express traits similar to us, but also herd animals the same way that we've been herding animals. I think that's a pretty strong anthropomorphic traits that dogs display, and cows and pigs don't do that.
So you're saying dogs display the trait of herding animals, which is the product of selective breeding, and we've bred them to do such, which is an anthropomorphic trait that gives them more moral value?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that if you told the average person this dog is a non-herding dog, they would weigh it less morally.
Oh no, I feel like in a world where dogs weren't able to herd other animals, I feel like that in that world we wouldn't value dogs.
We're not asking in a world where it's the case that this happens. We're asking instead, if it was the case we had a non-hurting dog, would people value that less morally? And the answer is obviously no.
No, my explanation is that cognitively, when we think of a dog, we think of a lot of the traits that are displayed by this.
We don't think of the fact that it's hurting. No, we don't.
I argue that we do. I feel like it's been incorporated with our
no, because they're non-hurting dogs, and we just don't give a fuck. We don't view them as less moral.
No, I'm not saying that we view them as less moral, and my explanation is precisely why.
No, you're like mixing together both this Evo Psych explanation and also this idea that's genuinely part of their consideration. So just because of the fact that there is some kind of evolutionary reason in favor of it being the case that we value something, is not the same as to say people are actually valuing it cognitively. Those individuals don't have it as part of their consideration set. Clearly they don't, and we know this because of the fact we can control for this consideration, and we can see people do not care at all about whether or not the dogs hurt animals. They just don't give a fuck about that. Do you think that people do care about whether or not dogs hurt animals? Do you think it's the case that if the dogs were not hurting dogs, would it be the case they value them less?
That's exactly why I gave you the world where dogs didn't hurt other animals and they didn't derive.
No, you can't do that because what we're talking about is whether or not it's the case. Nope, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Because something could be evolutionarily a reason why we ended up valuing dogs, but that wouldn't mean it's part of the value set. So dogs being useful to us for the fact that we have a higher likelihood of interbreeding and producing fertile offspring. It's a very, very different consideration than whether or not it's the case that those dogs are the kind of things we value because of that. You can say something like there's a causal history, but it's not the same thing as a reason. Obviously, the reasons why we value dogs have nothing to do with whether or not they can hurt animals.
Well, what do you take a reason to be? And I just take that. This is why I'm asking, is because I think a causal history is going to be sufficient for a reason.
No, you definitely don't think that.
No, I do. A causal history.
Okay, I'll give you a counterexample. So if a person, obviously, every person who's ever raped a baby is somebody who has a causal history in favor of raping the baby. Is it the case they have a reason to rape the baby?
I guess I don't know what you mean by causal history. I wouldn't.
You know what? The same way you just meant.
Yeah, no. By causal history, I'm talking about something that caused the state of affairs.
Okay. Yep. So every single person who's ever raped a baby, there was a causal history that led to it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it the case there's a reason for it?
Yeah, there's an explanation for it. There's a reason, an explanation.
Unironically, I'm not talking about causes. I'm talking about reasons in the sense of justifications for actions.
Okay, if you're talking about justificatory reasons, then no.
Okay. So obviously there's not a reason to do the action in that sense, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, and the type of thing that we're talking about when we say this person values this thing because of this, do you think it's the case that in this context the cause would be relevant or the justification would be relevant?
Obviously the justification would be more relevant.
Okay. So then I'm asking you, why is it the case that why is it the case that you think the hurting has anything to do with the justification for it?
Well,
why do you think it's a reason for it in that sense, like a justifier?
Well, I think here's the confusion. I think the justification that I'm laying out is sort of indexed to this causal history. And it's not just causal history simpliciter, it's just the fact that the causal history is linked to the trait that I'm hypothesizing is morally valuable.
Say again?
It's not just the fact that it's a causal history that makes it justificatory, but I'm saying that the reason why the causal history is justificatory in this specific case is because the causal history is linked to the thing that I'm hypothesizing is morally valuable.
Why would that be the case?
The thing that I'm hypothesizing is morally valuable is, like I said, a set of anthropomorphic traits. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the causal history and I'm going to be like, oh shit, when this set of species was around anthropomorphic beings, they actually started to gain some of their traits, such as controlling other herds, controlling other animals, and they started, getting these traits and adapting, mutating to the point where even in today's society we refer to dogs as man's best friend. I think that's a strong reason, and I'm not saying that the causal history is justificatory, but I'm saying that the causal history explains why it has.
Explaining why it's the case that this is true isn't sufficient for your argument. What I'm asking instead is, do you think it's the case that this justifies the action? Do you think it's the case that their ability to herd animals has any kind of import into their status of moral patienthood?
Yes, because it conforms to the hypothesis.
Okay, so and by moral status, you're just indexing it to people's preferences, right?
Yeah, and their empathy. And
would people prefer to hurt dogs more if it was the case they couldn't hurt animals? Just one specific dog. If that one specific dog lacked this ability, would they care less about hurting it?
The specific dog, I'm not sure I'd be able to answer that because I think that most people look at
I could
specific
answer,
dogs.
but the answer is no. They wouldn't give a fuck.
I know. Okay.
It doesn't. Non-hurting dogs aren't looked upon as less morally
I've already
valuable.
answered. I believe I've already answered this question. I said no because I think that what I'm explaining to you is that we look at that particular dog and think of traits that are true of the species.
No, I don't think it's the case that we're looking at that particular dog and thinking of these traits that are true of the species, and I don't think you have any evidence to suggest.
Well, this is where this is where I looked to the other world, where it is the case that dogs just did not have this ability.
The other world doesn't control for the relevant factors. It could be the case
Well,
that
it's almost
dogs are
like
less used. And
excuse
me, another explanation could be positive that you haven't addressed, that you're not actually giving any reason. This is going to be a negation of your claim, and you're not actually giving any reason why it's not the case. This could be true. It could also be the case that instead of it being the case that those individuals value the dogs because of the fact they don't hurt, and they're thinking about the fact they don't hurt. Instead, it could be the case that human beings just interact with dogs if it's the case that dogs don't hurt.
Oh, here's something that I think could raise the probability of what I'm saying or give some evidence that you're looking for. Is if we had another species that was kind of like dogs, but also didn't have these traits of being controlling other animals or being adapted from more different species with human interaction. And let's use pigs as this example. Now let's look at this other set where the trait is not true to the species, and it actually is the case that
that's still unironically that's still expected on the alternative hypothesis.
Oh, okay, what's the alternative hypothesis?
The one that I just gave is just that people might just spend less time around dogs if it's the case they don't hurt. Dogs as a species don't hurt. It could just be the case that people don't spend as much time around them. The same is true for pigs.
I'm probably gonna have to think about. I actually don't know if that would actually be more expected.
Doesn't matter if it's more expected. It just matters if it's equally expected, because this is a negation of your hypothesis. It's an alternative hypothesis. There's no reason why we should have lower priors on this, your hypothesis. Do you think there is?
Yes, I think. Okay, I think here's another example.
Yes. Why should we have lower priors on?
Sorry, I don't know why I said yes, but I was like, yes. I think I have another thing that raises the probability of my hypothesis being true with another example, if that's fine. Or if you want to continue that question.
That's fine. What's your new example?
Okay. An example that's gonna be predicted under my hypothesis, which is also going to vicariously raise the probability of this other hypothesis that we're just talking about. Is that something? And this is a counterexample to yours, where we don't really spend as much time with these animals, but we still do give them more and more consideration than like pigs and stuff are going to be like apes and monkeys. So like take a random chimpanzee. I think we don't really hang out with chimpanzees that much. It's really rare that someone even has a pet, and very few times that we go to the zoo to see a chimpanzee. So we don't interact with them, and in fact, I would probably argue that we hang out with pigs more than chimpanzees. But it is still the case that I think that we value chimpanzees more than pigs.
Do you think we value them more than dogs?
Yeah, I think a little bit more. Yeah.
Really? Do you have any empirics to show that? I think that most people value dogs more than chimpanzees.
I might have to get some data from that.
I think that if they were being rational, I think that if everybody was being extremely rational, they would value the chimpanzee more than the dog. But I don't think people are being rational. I think they value dogs more.
And your explanation is cognitive abilities, if I'm correct, or is it something else?
Well, I think it's the case that having any rights afforded to it whatsoever is because of the fact that I think there's at least some cognitive abilities. But I don't think it's the case that the weighing here is because of cognitive abilities.
Okay. Not super relevant. But
I think it's because we spend way more time around dogs.
Okay. Well, you said if they're being rational, they would value the chimpanzees more. Can I ask why?
The reason why I think there is be rational to value the chimpanzees more is because I think the chimpanzee has more of an input on utility.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be pretty good. And I also support that. I think there are other reasons why we should value chimpanzees and dogs. But what's consistent, however,
but I'm still looking for the justification for the view that human beings on average value the chimpanzee more than they value dogs, because you said that.
I don't have any data on that.
Do you have any evidence?
No, I don't have any evidence. Other than just me.
Do you have any reason to raise your priors for one than the other?
It just like really intuitively seems to me that I like I'd be more upset if like I saw a chimpanzee get like murdered than if I saw a dog get murdered.
Okay, that might be intuitive to you, but I don't think it's intuitive to most people.
Yeah. Not that you have a burden at all, but do you have evidence for that?
Yeah, I do actually. Let me get it for you.